Welcome to Command Control Power, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. For over a decade, we've delivered weekly episodes filled with epic tech support stories, troubleshooting insights, discussions about managing clients and businesses, and interviews with industry colleagues and vendors, all tailored for our pro listeners. We also offer exclusive content through Patreon. This private podcast feed is designed specifically for IT professionals, providing valuable advice and guidance on tackling the more complex aspects of running your practice, working with clients and employees, and managing device fleets. With a modest monthly contribution, you'll gain access to a wealth of advanced Apple expertise, meaningful connections, and a community driven by a shared passion for Apple technology. Visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support to learn more.
Command Control Power is brought to you commercial-free thanks to the support of our incredible community. We extend a special thank you to our VIP Premier partners, Adigy, the leading Apple device management platform, Tidbits Content Network, Cirrus Partners, and Alectrona, the makers of Patch. We truly appreciate our VIP supporters and all of our patrons for making this show possible. Thank you.
And now, on to the show.
Welcome to another episode of Command Control Power. We are pleased to be joined this week by returning guest Adam Rice of Ask Adam. Adam, welcome back to Command Control Power.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Great to have you back. It's actually been a while. We see you online and Slack. Sam and I saw you in person relatively recently, but to actually have you on this show is a treat. You're reporting in live from, are you in Philadelphia or whereabouts are you in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I live in the city. I'm in the Mount Airy neighborhood.
Very nice.
Nice. Awesome.
I think the last time Adam joined us, he was on a round table. So I don't think he's actually ever been an official single guest on Command Control Power. So this is long overdue.
Yeah, I think I forgot you were in Mount Airy. I remember the commercials from Mount Airy Lodge. I don't know if you guys in the
I do too, actually.
That.
Totally, yeah.
Now's the perfect time, and the season is just right. You can play all day and dance into the night. At beautiful Mount Airy Lodge, all you have to bring is your love of everything.
For reservations, phone 1-800-441-4441.
Yep.
You don't remember that, Adam? You probably didn't see. I don't know if you saw the commercials if you were living in the area. But.
No, we moved to Philly from DC, and this was around 2008 or so. But I want to say Mount Airy Lodge is maybe in the Poconos. I don't know.
That's right. I was just going to correct them, Adam. Thank you.
Well, what do I know?
Yeah. I guess the ad really worked, Sam. You're just you're driving to Pennsylvania, and that's not where you live though, but that's the same name, or?
Yeah, Mount Airy is.
Did I misunderstand? Mount Airy, yeah. Okay.
It's a neighborhood in the northwest kind of region of the city. Yeah.
Okay. And the Poconos,
it's mountains pretty directly north of Philly. And it's like a vacation area that's a popular destination from here. People either go down the shore, as we say in Philadelphia, or to the Poconos for skiing or mountain stuff.
Definitely I've seen the ads that Sam mentioned, and I
have the jingle in my head. That's why.
That's right. Those jingles really stick for a while.
Yeah.
Adam, I made a few notes of things that have come up over the last little while. I remember, I think this came up on Slack. You mentioned iVerify for iOS devices. Have we? I don't think we've talked about this on this show, but I was curious to dig into that a little bit. You also, I think another interesting topic is residential work, because not everybody out there does it, but I know you do, and I do, and Jerry does. Sam probably still has a few residential clients, Sam, but you're not so focused on that anymore.
Yeah, I have a few out there, and sometimes it's offshoots of customers that we have as business clients, and we help them in their homes.
Yeah. To me, there seems like a little bit of an arbitrary distinction, but it'd be interesting to just talk about how that fits into your business model. And then you're a one-man show, right, Adam, so to speak? Or do you have anybody that's working with you?
I am. Yeah. I sometimes pull my son in on this and that, as I think I've mentioned. He does a few things for me somewhat consistently.
Okay.
He's responsible for taking the articles from the Tidbits Content Network that show up in my WordPress installation every month. And I do very light editing. I have my own kind of style guide for whatever reason, I don't want an M dash to be touching the letters next to it. So he puts the spaces in between the M dash. And I do trust his kind of sense of my values and voice. So we don't do tons of editing, but I empower him to read over it and point out if there's something that he thinks I would say differently. But for the most part, he just does a once over, makes sure that the images are there, that everything's working. And then there's some stuff to clean up. The social media tag is appended to the article. So he'll move that over into another field and then he just posts it. So that works really well. Nice. He also helps me process like old hardware. That's the other piece that's he can take.
Yeah, don't let them bully you, Adam. There's a lot of pride in being a solopreneur.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
These guys with their teams can go home. That's what I say.
Teams.
Everybody makes fun of our teams. No, but I think having someone like your son actually do work for you, like you just said, he knows like the voice that you're looking for. That's actually critical because you can't just hire anyone to do that and know and trust that they're going to make it sound like you.
No, it's very true. It's funny because we had almost no discussion about it, right? I was just like, you've known me all your life.
Yeah.
You're a reader, you're a writer. And I trust that you know what I mean when I say, does it sound like me? Somebody I bring in because they maybe have a background in Apple technology. There'd be a big kind of gap to bridge to figure out, are we aligned here? Do we?
And I think it needs to be said that for a second grader, that's really impressive that he's doing all that too.
Funny guy.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
I'm a solo consultant, and when I started out, I was absolutely certain that's just where I was going to be forever. And I still am for the most part. I was just talking to somebody at a client. I've got co-managed IT, and their internal IT person is a great colleague, and we work really well together. And she was just asking me, do you miss working in an office? And I just burst out like a laugh. I was like, I could never imagine doing that ever again. And I think some of the same reasons, right? Like I started this business and I consult because I don't ever want to prepare a resume again. I don't ever want to receive a performance review again. I don't want to do a performance review again. And that sort of overlaps. Like if I don't want to step back into this world of, I don't want to be managed, and I'm not sure I want to manage either, but I've just in the last couple of years, I'm starting to think, however, I'm really good at what I do. I might appreciate the feeling of accomplishing more than I do as a single person. Like I look at I count my endpoints. Do we all do that? And I'm like, how many am I managing?
Yeah.
What if that was more? Not just because it's like a linear increase in my revenue necessarily, but I'd like to say I do twice that or 10 times that. That might be fun to say or think. Or
source of pride. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and then I don't know if you think this way too, but like long term, over the really long term, what's the kind of like succession plan? Or if it is just you, what happens then? Or if you just get really tired of it or whatever. That's a way to hedge things too, is if you have someone else who's already doing some of the work, then maybe they could take on more of the work. And so it doesn't have to be like an all or nothing thing, but it just gives you more things to play with in the company. I was curious if you've ever done any subcontracting, like hired a subcontractor to work with like that.
I haven't. And that does feel like something that would be a much easier way to take on a little bit more scope than I currently do, or just into a larger job or something like that. I don't quite know how to find someone. Is it the same thing as like putting an ad out to hire someone, which is a lot to do? I don't want to write a resume. I don't want to receive a performance review. I don't want to write a job description.
I've heard that before. Wait a second.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I don't want to. I'm lazy.
It's hard to find someone that you can trust. I don't know if some of those, they have those networking events. I haven't been in one of them in years, but I wonder if you could find someone that you develop a relationship with in one of those networking circles and then eventually work together. But I don't know. It's hard to find someone
like Jerry. I don't like people, but reflecting on it, the colleague I work with, right? I find myself thinking, oh, if she quit her job like that'd be an amazing resource. And I would be like, you need something to do, but then so many things to consider. I would like to be able to offer this person benefits. I would like to be able to, and I've really just like relaxed into my level of income. I'm not reserving like the benefits bucket and the this and the that. So it's tough to figure out how that might happen.
In my experience too, you can run those numbers on paper and it can make a lot of sense. If I'm paying this person this amount and benefits, and all I would really need is for them to bill like this number every week, and it seems like a very doable number, and you're like multiplying that by your full rate or whatever, and it turns out, well, the actual rate, oh, in your case, actually, I'd like to get into it, but like it's variable. Even in my case, where I'm in theory charging the same rate to everyone, there's a rate if they're up on a plan versus not on a plan. There's a rate if they prepay for time. So that's already a big range. So there's an average rate that's different than my like posted rate. It's less than my posted rate. So doing those numbers, you can make it look good on paper and then realize, well, actually, it's not this number that they would need to bill. It's 1.25x that number or 1.5x that number. And while it seems easy to say, they could just bill this much every week on a weekly basis on average, because they're getting paid every week, but the work is sometimes not there, or they're on vacation that week or whatever. So the average is actually really hard to achieve. I'm just giving you my sob story of what it's like to actually manage people that I never really wanted to do. I feel like I never signed up for that, but I just fell into it and figured it out. But that's not like where my natural talents were. So it's been a learning curve for me. Yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, I think I'm coming to terms with the fact that there's a risk, but I also fall into it at this point. The better I get at all of these things, and the more my appetite for a slightly larger kind of scope of operation increases from like 0 to maybe. So
yeah,
it could happen.
True.
That makes sense.
Staying nimble is an important recipe for me, just staying afloat and being able to make the bills and make those decisions on the fly. And sometimes when you invite other people to the party, you've got to think, okay, what are the ramifications of me cutting back on this? All right, so we need another tool that I've got to onboard for not only myself and learn. I could pick that up in an hour or whatever, but now I've got to pass it on to my employee. And all of a sudden, what I was thinking I was saving money for is actually costing me more money. Yeah, being able to just be able to do things on the fly and be nimble helps.
Yeah, I think we were joking about not liking people, and Tim Pearson in his chat was just noting how he just logged into the show and hears Adam say, I don't like people. But I think that's a big part of it, that you like the person you work with. I'll just call back to ACES this year when Rob Calvert was talking about that personality matrix and how I found that actually interesting, to be honest with you.
Really interesting. Yeah.
And how you're in this part of the matrix and you might get along with people that are in this part. I never considered that at all. But that might be something that you have to worry about. What if you just flat out don't like the person?
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
And that's your quality of life. Now you actually have to talk to them 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Like that.
Right.
That's what you're signing up for. So yeah, that better work. And it's really tough to know that going in unless you have an existing relationship of some sort with the person. And that, to me, that's the beauty of subcontracting, is to be able to dial it up, dial it back. It's a lot easier to just like get started with someone and give it a try. And it could be like you're going to be on vacation in a few weeks. You test the waters a little bit, and then now that they're there in case you need them for that week that you're away or whatever, and see how it goes. So Jerry's been really helpful as a subcontractor over the years, and he's been very tolerant of my kind of wavering need for support, because that's the other thing too with a full-time employee. Like if you're not giving them work, they're probably thrilled. They're like, that's great, I'll just sit around and wait and I'm still collecting a paycheck. With a subcontractor, they have to be willing to like walk the walk with you, go through the steps of getting on board, learn your systems, learn the way you are, learn how to work with you, and then hope for some work. And then if it's there, it's great. And if it's not there, hopefully there's no hard feelings. Jerry, I'm putting you on the spot. Hopefully there's no hard feelings because it's not always there. But that also is a benefit for both sides, because there's also no assumption for me that my subcontractors will at a moment's notice be available. They've got their own businesses or their own day job or whatever the case may be. And it's a two-way street. And that feels a little more equitable than taking on all that risk of a full-time employee, paying them this big salary with benefits, trying to take care of them like I know you would, Adam, knowing who you are, and signing up for all of that on a weekly basis. And then you just have to take a huge leap of faith on your side. And they're also taking a leap as well, but that's a bigger leap. And in my experience, it's really hard to get there. I felt really lucky when I hired Tim, who's still with me now 13 years in or something like that. I had just signed a big client, and I was like talking to Tim in the meantime and talking to this client and thinking, if I sign the client and sign up Tim, it's probably all going to be good. But if something falls through with the client or something falls through with Tim, I was either going to be like overworked, which I already felt overworked, but not quite overworked enough to need a full-time extra person, or I was going to not have enough work for Tim. So it's a tricky balance, and you do have to take a leap sometimes, but it doesn't always fall in your lap in a perfect way like that.
I think one last comment I'll make about this is also the residential customer that you guys have. And it's so personal that it's a little different than walking into a 10-person office or 5-person office. It's you, it's your personality that gets you in the door and probably builds the relationship. So
that's
a really good point. Yeah.
Just hire somebody with the same name. Like,
yeah, that works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
No, that was all going through my head as well. I think that it's one thing to hire somebody who knows their stuff and takes a shower and can communicate at a basic level versus like a lot of my work still involved going into someone's home. Like they're taking it's a lot of trust. I've had some folks reach out to me, and on the one hand, it was a pretty standard, straightforward thing. Yeah, I've got a Mac. I've got some questions. We could probably spend a couple hours with you sitting next to me at my desk to do this. And then a lot of times it's just, sure, what day and time works for you? Sometimes they'll say, can you provide some references? Totally. Of course. I get it. Yeah. You're inviting a strange, unfamiliar man into your home. You're going to want to hear that this isn't the first time you didn't just stumble across. Who knows?
You mentioned the shower thing. You can't assume anything. What are the stories I've heard from people in our industry?
It's IT.
Personal hygiene is key. You're going into someone's home, and it's not a safe assumption that everybody just knows that they should be cleaned up. And I heard a story of somebody in a home of one of the clients, and like picking up like photos and like looking at a photo on this shelf or like that kind of just like weird stuff.
Yeah, that's little.
It wasn't me.
Look around and anything. No, it wasn't Jerry. Exactly. But I don't want the client to see me like looking. Oh, look at the computer. Like that's what you're there for. Like maybe trace a wire back behind the desk. But
it's funny, but I feel the exact same. Yeah, I'll find myself like just catching their art on their wall. I'm like, of course it's okay that I read, but within a moment, I'll stop and I'll shift back. And I'm like, it's not really appropriate to be like evaluating your decor. That's just not, that's not what I'm here for.
You're casing the
not
joint.
Everybody gets that. Yeah, exactly. Right. Oh, that's a very nice piece. So
until we had this conversation, I don't know if I would have even thought that this is something that I might want to talk to a hire or a subcontractor about. But of course, yeah.
Yeah, this is a very nice work of art. Do you have an alarm system at your house?
Yeah, exactly.
What time do you and your wife go to bed?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Oh man, I noticed on your calendar that you're going to be out of town next week. Yeah. Jerry, that's a beautiful piece of art behind you. Speaking of art, are you in a different room this week here?
Yeah, I'm like that couple from Arizona, I believe it was. There was a documentary made where they stole a piece of art from a museum there of famous artists' work that was stolen years ago. And finally, the couple passed away and they found behind their bedroom door. So if you walked in their bedroom, you couldn't see this work of art. But as soon as you closed the door, they had this painting that they stole on the back wall.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So Adam, let's focus on the demographics of your customer base just to educate our listeners a little bit. Would you say it's 50-50 in terms of residential, commercial, or how do you work and how do you find people, first of all?
Oh, I wish I knew.
Yeah.
I reflect on where they came from. So it's funny, my journey, I've been doing this for maybe 12 years now. We're doing it actively, right? I tried to start this in maybe 2011, and I've been working pretty steadily since 2012, 2013. And my first clients were through all kinds of ridiculous, I was just putting things out in wherever I could think to. A really bad Craigslist ad got me a client I still have to this day. I live in a pretty crunchy neighborhood, and so there's a grocery co-op that was heavily visited by a strong community, and there's bulletin boards all over the place there. And so I just created these flyers that just have colorful, recognizable Apple icons. I was like, I want someone from far away to look over and be like, oh, that's a Mac something, draw towards it.
Yeah.
And that's marketing towards residential folks. And
you've got a friendly name. You got a welcoming name to your business, Ask Adam. So that draws people in too. It's not, let's just throw out a random company like HCS Technologies.
I knew it was coming. I was waiting.
I'd be intimidated by that. Oh, these guys are too expensive for me. I'm going to Ask Adam.
Or something.
Yeah, it took me years to come to Ask Adam. I was just Adam Rice. I had already registered adamrice.org, just a vanity domain, and I was like, that's good enough. It's just me. So I was that's where my website was, and that's how I was operating for the longest time. But a handful of years ago, I was like, I got to step this up. I've got to pick a name and go with it. And it was actually Call Andy. When I reflected on, I came up with a huge list of possibilities, all kinds of, in every imaginable direction, like the Latin word for apple. I was trying to make pomological work or something. That's a tongue twister. I need something like, but when I looked at Call Andy and I did Ask Adam, it was just like perfect instantly.
Yeah. Because the knee-jerk reaction is to go with something big. Technology solutions.
Worldwide technology.
Worldwide
Group,
headquarters. Yeah.
I wanted some kind of personality, and I guess it's me. It's mine.
Yeah. So that's great that it works.
Yeah.
I got one for you, Jerry. How about give Jerry a jingle.io?
A little long.
So
Jingle Jerry would be better.
JingleJerry.io. There you go. Simple.
in terms of numbers, my clients, it's probably 50-50. If I looked more closely, I might find it's 65-35, but not to, and I don't even know in which direction. The more interesting question now is what's the focus of my time? And that's a little bit of a story. So I've got my two largest clients represent a dangerous portion of my revenue and too much of my time and attention. And it's been a great way to count on the money coming in for the last couple of years. But it's led me to slacking off on marketing. So I am no longer putting those flyers up at the co-op. I'm not getting a ton of word of mouth and a ton of new clients. The folks that I work with stick with me. But this year I've rededicated myself to doing some more marketing, probably to get residential folks, because I think, and I think, Joe, you've probably found this too. If I talk to a dozen new residential folks, one or two of them actually run a business or their partner does. So that's actually a great way in. They know me, they trust me, they like me, they love me, and then they bring me into something larger.
Yeah.
But yeah, the larger business clients I have come either directly from a local Apple store or just by being on the ACN locator, which is also great, but it's not something I really know how to make happen again. I don't know how to push on that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a very similar experience where I'm not getting the new referrals in, and the clients that we've had over the years, when they first used to come from the Apple store, they've stayed. And I have one big anchor store client like you. You've got two, I've got one, that devotes not a large portion of my time, but there's that recurring revenue that I constantly count on a monthly basis. Yeah, you have to, sometimes these opportunities present themselves with these businesses, and like Joe said, he made a decision about hiring Tim based on that one acquisition that he had. So sometimes you just have to fish or cut bait. Yeah. You jump right into the deep end of the pool and make that commitment.
And hope for the best. And I've also done that too when I've scaled to more than one other full-time employee, where it just has to work. They have to drive some of their own sales, like some of their own work, and it didn't work in a few cases. It's just a thing that needs constant reevaluation also. So that's really tricky. But Adam, in terms of your two biggest clients, are there any things you can do to hedge that or offset the risk of, or mitigate the risk of just one of those clients? Do you have insight into, they're pretty financially stable, that's probably not going to happen, or it could be a shock thing where they say, hey, we're closing up shop in a month or something?
I'm starting to, I don't know if it's I see the writing on the wall or the winds of change. I'm getting some strong signals. It was actually clarified a lot for me at ACES this year when, gosh, I'm not going to remember his name, but someone spoke about valuing your company, and that kind of expanded into the context of how selling a company, how it's valued based on revenue, how a bigger value, more revenue increases the valuation, not just linearly, but maybe logarithmically or something, geometrically or something.
Gnome's talk, I think.
Birnbaum.
That was a great, but probably my favorite talk. Just learning all that, those multiples and how you hit that next number. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it's like a step function where suddenly the valuation is much higher. But as he talked about that, he explained that a lot of what's going on when companies are being bought these days, at least, is private equity is showing up and is figuring, if I can buy this and buy this, now my revenue takes me to, right? Yep. And so this private equity roll up, one of my two anchor clients had been privately owned. I had a great relationship with the founder a couple of years ago. And I learned about this maybe 9 to 12 months after the fact. But a couple of years ago, he sold to private equity. What I was doing didn't change immediately. Nobody called me up to tell me, hey, Adam, I need you to, as an afterthought or not a thought at all. But I picked up on it as it was time to start to merge with another organization that the private equity company also owned. And so what I'm seeing in this is actually really eye-opening. They seem to be trying to cut costs at any cost for any reason, right?
Sure.
They just want to shift the numbers, right? They may or may not be able to increase the revenue, but whatever they can do to get that ratio better is going to lead to a better multiple, a better valuation. Somebody, like a lot of people at the top of this, have exit strategies, and I'm just here
at their whim, basically. Yeah.
So it's what the kinds of things I'm seeing are pretty ridiculous, right? Operations that I'm working with, and from the period of November of last year to February of this year, we had a great successful project to roll out a centralized digital signature management tool. And then in April, it's like, why are we spending money on signatures? Pull it out. So we've invested not only of my time, but it's got to be 100 hours between the designer who developed it, all of the beta testing that went on internally before they approved the signature, and then my time to load the CSV and correct all of the people forgot there's a typo in someone's phone number, or someone didn't update their job title. So all of that. And then it's just burn. It's a sunk cost. It might be the right decision. Maybe the company's losing money. Maybe they need to cut costs. But the feeling I get is that they're just trying to work those numbers.
Yeah. I don't know why the signature thing is raw to me, because I just had a client do the same thing. Why are we spending $2,000 a year on signatures? Now, you're a pretty large company and you want to have some uniformity there and how people respond and everything. I'm like, I don't understand. And it's just like what you're describing. They're trying to cut costs anywhere they can. I'm thinking, are we next? What's going to go next?
To me, like you just said it with private equity, that's their game. I call them the venture capital vultures. It's like they swoop in and they try to, they try to over optimize things and increase that multiple as much as they can, because it's a short-term plan. It's not like they don't care about the long-term relationship. They don't care about the long-term reputation. They don't care about quality, really, because that's a lagging indicator. It's if quality starts to drop, quality could suffer for 6 months or a year. And it's not an issue until the next person is left holding the bag. So that's the issue with that kind of situation. And it's good for you to pay attention to that. What would you do? Do you just could you sign them on a contract where they legally need to give you 6 months notice or something? I don't even know how that would work, or a year or something like that. Prepay for a year. And then we worry about this stuff sometimes too, where like Jerry's brought this up in the past, where when you get the money up front, then something happens in the macroeconomic area, like when we went through COVID. Now you've got this person's money up front, you owe them service for a year, but then they go out of business. And so you have a relationship with them and they want the money back, and you feel bad. You don't have to give it back, but so there's like weird little issues with that kind of thing. But I wonder if there's anything you could do to just somewhere in between. What do you do now? Is it month to month, or is there a long-term contract?
No, it is month to month. And one of the writings on the wall or whatever was an email I got a couple of weeks ago or a month ago that was like, by the way, what are our terms with you? I was like, why are you asking?
Yeah.
One of those.
Good question.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk about ruining the rest of the month for you, or the next year. Those are horrible to get. Yeah, we don't have a contract with you. What are we paying for? Can you come up with some sort of a description? So obviously there's going to be people listening to the show that are going to go, see, you need a contract because you'd be protected. But a lot of times we've talked about this over and over again. These relationships are built on a spit and a handshake, and you can do very well. And if you're overprotective, let's say when you say, I'm sorry, I really can't work with you unless we have something in writing, that opportunity may go down to someone else who's less qualified than you. So a lot of times it's great to quarterback this thing and say, we got to have these contracts, but ultimately that's not the way business runs sometimes.
Yeah, I think one takeaway, my attitude in this situation is I might be successful today if I said I'd like to establish a contract now. They might be like, we aren't ready to cut off the one person connected to this organization that understands how to manage Macs. We can't cut that off with less than 30 days notice. But I don't think I want to, if it's going to be shifting towards an adversarial relationship. They're
Yeah, of course.
looking for ways out. I think I would rather just ride it and get my own house in order, which is part of why I've already decided that I need to shift towards marketing towards residential folks. What it would mean for me if I lost this client, that's 30% of my revenue, but I could backfill that all. I would just work more, but not more than I ever have, not more than I can, just more than I like to, but I could do it.
Right.
So
yeah, that's interesting. And in terms of the timing, even if you tried to submit a contract now, it's just not the right time anyway, because then it's just looking like you're trying to fill that gap that's inevitably coming. But I find contracts just in general too, even if you have one, there's usually a clause of, okay, you got to give us 2 months notice, but you're still able to leave. The contract is good, don't get me wrong, but there's still ways out for the customer, because no one's going to sign their life on the line for 5 years and say, yeah, I can't get out.
Yeah, exactly. What would the incentive be to do that? You better be giving them some pretty big concessions if you're going to force them to never leave for 5 years. You're probably going to have to cut your rate in half or something, which is not. So I was wondering maybe if it's just a conversation with the point of contact saying, hey, I'm starting to get some little alerts on the radar here, and I just hope things are going well. I'm not trying to pry into that, but could you let me know if you think this is going to drop off? Could you give me as much notice as possible? It's just all, again, comes back to the relationship, right? It's, hey, look, I just don't want to be left in a lurch with zero notice.
Yeah, this particular situation is funny because I had a wonderful relationship with the person in this role, and they left sometime between January and February.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And so a new person came into the role, and they're similarly great personality, great to talk to, very kind, very patient, decently communicative. But I have put out feelers from time to time. I'll in an email when something somewhat relevant is happening. I'll be, does this mean anything? Should I know something? And silence, it's as if that line wasn't included in the email. So yeah, I either push on it or I just, again, put my energy into the future.
Yep. It's always good to hedge with other clients. You can make
what kind of a business is it generally? Is it legal, retail, accounting?
Marketing and training.
Okay.
Just a quick note. I did do what Joe mentioned one time with a big client that we were afraid we were losing. And I literally told the person, and it was a new person as well, Adam, they had my favorite person left and there was a new person there. Not as nice, but anyway, I said, listen, we're a small business. Can you because I feel like I'm being hung out on a thread right now and I can't survive month to month knowing that you might drop us because you don't feel like it. So I literally asked, I was like, can you please just let us know or give us enough notice so that we're not in the lurch? And she had agreed. Thankfully, they didn't leave, but she had agreed. But I don't know if that would have done anything. They still could have been like, "Oh, we're done." But I asked. I just said, "This what's the worst that can happen if I ask?" It's the common courtesy part that you're looking for there.
Yeah, exactly. Adam, let's talk also rates if we could, just because I'm so curious about this business model. I assume you're okay talking about this on a public show. You have these, I believe this is posted on your website. Would you call this a sliding scale, or what's your kind of way of thinking about this and how you position your rates to your clients?
Can you describe it for us, Joe, just generally speaking, or have Adam do it?
Yeah, Adam, do you want to give us the pitch? So I'm a new client coming in. I see your poster up. I see your sign, all the little Apple logo, all the little icons attracted me. I walk up, ask Adam, perfect. I need somebody I can ask questions whenever I'm wondering something. So give you a call. How do you charge? I have a desktop, I have an iMac and a laptop and an iPhone, and I have 2 kids with iPads. How do you charge?
Yeah, that's great. No, I have no pitch. I'm terrible at elevator pitches. I'm terrible at phone calls.
Pitch then. Yeah. Okay.
But
no, I'm sure you do great. So let's hear how do you okay?
Yeah,
so
and honestly, that's why
I love what I'm hearing. I want to work with you. How do you charge? That's the specific question.
Yeah, that's why I publish it on my website so I can email people the link. Okay. Let's talk after you've done your homework here. But I've modified it a bunch of times. The latest way I'm referring to it is equitable pricing. It's based on the idea of a sliding scale. It holds together. I've seen different services and organizations doing something very similar. And so I cobbled together what I've got on my site based on a bunch of stuff like that. But the idea generally, and this is specifically an option for residential clients. If you're a business customer, I'm going to tell you how much it costs and you're going to pay me or see you later. But for residential folks, I think part of my motivation is that I don't want to turn someone away for price. I certainly may or may not have availability sooner rather than later or whatever, but I want to spend my time sharing my knowledge and helping people. And I found over the course of doing this, I was dutifully heeding the advice to raise my rates again and again. And I was like, this is great. I raise my rate and they pay it. But what I'm seeing is some people couldn't afford my early rates. They were like, are you crazy? I can get the neighbor kid to do this for nothing or half that. Like, so why did you call me? But I wanted to be able to say, yeah, I will help you regardless of your ability to pay to the extent that I can make that make sense. What I've come to now is I've got a suggested rate, and that pretty much aligns with what I would have said before I decided to put this whole system together and decided to actionalize it. And my initial approach was a suggested rate and then some lower rates, because the idea is you can pay me or you're going to have some trouble paying me, and I'm going to work with you anyway. My latest approach, and I think I learned this from a local organization, a local choir sells tickets to their events this way. And there's a suggested rate, and there are lower rates, and there's a higher rate, right? It's you may have plenty of money. You may like my mission to help people with technology and want to contribute towards that. I was really interested in a sliding scale equitable model for a long time, but I was afraid, reluctant to go public with it and to start actually offering it to people until I figured out how to make sure that I could make it work. And what I came to was I had already adopted the profit first method of keeping track of how much income have I got and how do I need to allocate it to make sure that I'm covering my expenses, paying myself what I want to, and that there's money for taxes and that there's money for other stuff. And I'd been doing that. That's an amazing system. Get the book and read it and do it if you're not doing it. But having done that for a while and spent a ton of time trying to figure out the sliding scale, I realized all I need to do is add another account, it's another checking account that I've opened. I add an allocation from the percentage of revenue that goes straight into there. And it's just for Equitable customers or something like that, right? So there's constantly money available. If I develop a relationship with someone who's going to pay me 75% or 50% of what I would otherwise charge, I'll just draw the rest of it from this account that's sitting in my bank and has money in it. And if I don't do the work for somebody, I don't touch it. It's not mine yet. And how has this worked in practice? I've only worked with a handful of clients this way. So the way I'm rolling it out is if you ask me what my rate is, I will discuss this with you, direct you to the page, and then we'll talk about it. I'll tell you, you tell me what you want to pay me. You can take a look at this page on my website, figure out what's appropriate for you, and then tell me what the rate will be. Great. If they don't ask me, I just charge my standard rate. That's fine too. I figure if you're not worried about it, then we're just going to move forward this way.
And it's publicly published, so they could look it up if they really wanted to. So if they haven't, and they're just...
True.
Yeah, and if we're not absolutely clear about what we're discussing here, if you go to Adam's webpage after you've listened to the show or watched the show, has different tiers of pricing based on need. And there's some descriptors there that you can read and say, oh, I fit in this category, I fit in that category. And then commensurate with that, you would have a rate. So I think what you're doing is extremely, it's a strong word, but I think it's noble. I think it's a real wonderful gift that you're giving people who come in contact with you that can't normally afford you, but might be able to afford you on a sliding scale. And it's very much like we see in the people who need mental health wellness, going to see a therapist or something like that. This is where I have typically seen it in the past, but I've never actually seen it executed in any way in businesses such as ours or even related businesses. So it's really novel and it's worth considering, especially if you are you need to flesh out your business, you're not working all the time. So you're idle because people aren't willing to pay you the rate. This is me. I'm speaking for myself. But what if I gave back a little bit and worked with someone who couldn't afford me, but might be in need for that? So I commend you at what you're doing, Adam. I'm not sure it's right for me, but personally, I think it's noble.
That's a
I
good way.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
It might come from, I've always been a little socially justice minded, I don't mind saying. And I think it comes from finding myself in Philadelphia, which I think is often called like the poorest big city in America. So some of my neighbors these are the homes I walk into, and I'm like, huh, that's an original. Like that art on your wall I recognize the artist, and I would never have seen this. There you go.
Still casing
and
points.
They live side by side with folks who are on public assistance,
Yes.
but everybody has to use a computer. There's no escaping technology. So
That's the key right there. And like Jerry said, a lot of times you see this kind of sliding scale, equitable pricing model in like a therapeutic kind of context. I've seen it with friends who are in therapy, not who are therapists, who offer therapy, in some cases psychedelic therapy. And the idea is to make it accessible. That's really the goal, is to make these things like mental health services more accessible, because everybody's got a mind, everybody has a brain and a psyche, and may need help in varying degrees, regardless of your income and ability to pay. So to make it more accessible is a really good thing. And like you said, everybody needs to use a computer in this society, pretty much. And so it's just like that. We've compared ourselves to doctors and therapists and people like that. And there's some underlying truth to a lot of that. But one of the truths is everybody has tech issues. And why should some people get the really good service and be able to pay for it and other people just arbitrarily not be able to? Because a lot of times the reason that they can't afford it is not because they don't work as hard as everyone else. They probably work harder than everyone else. It just comes from like systemic problems in society and generational compounding problems that have occurred over like many years. And so, yeah, I think it's, like Jerry said, noble that you would also try to serve the people that can't afford the full rate. And some of the people can afford twice the full rate, you know? And so like, why not allow them to maybe feel like they're doing a little good by helping someone else afford it? And that's the model that I've seen in some of these therapeutic practices, which is charge a really high amount to the people that can pay, and they sign up, they pay the 2x what they would normally pay. And for every one person that pays, you let one person have the same service for free. And so it's just another kind of arbitrary way to do it. But I like having the idea of multiple tiers, because people can self-identify with, I've give us some examples here. So you literally talk about, if you have 3 residences, you can probably afford the full rate. If you have 6 cars, it's like that, along those lines, right? Is how you've identified.
it is, yeah. The language I'm using on the website it's a series of little sort of personas. You find yourself in it. And the idea is I can comfortably meet my needs, and I can take vacations, and I can, I do not have any concerns about reliable transportation. I can indulge in entertainment as I like to. And I try not to frame any of them judgmentally. It's a really delicate line to walk. Yes, and I've gotten feedback from people reading it who are like, I'm not exactly any of these. I'm like, of course you're not exactly any of them.
Everyone is a unique snowflake, we know, but what's closest? Just pick one. Pick a category. Let's put you at the top. Does that feel okay? Pay the full rate. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's
and just as
pretty personal. Yeah, go ahead, Jerry. Sorry.
Yeah, as an example, a very close member of my immediate family had to go on state support. And because you think to yourself, like, why does everybody need a computer? If you got a cell phone, you're all set. And so I assisted this person to qualify through that. And it took months to do. And had I not had computer skills, this person never would have been able to take advantage of a program that this person definitely qualified for. So there was no hidden money or money. A lot of times when people do this, not to get off our track too far, they sometimes divert funds. So the children will take money years ahead of time and take it out of grandma's account or something like that. So by the time grandma's at that point where she can't maintain the mortgage payments on her house, there's no money in her, and she has no money under her name, but it's been sifted off over the years because of this advanced planning. But there's a lot of people, and my particular family member included, that this didn't happen. This person legitimately qualified for it, but had you not had any computer skills or a command of the English language, you're screwed. you were absolutely screwed. And this is the state of Connecticut. It probably varies in different states, but so this is the why. It's the affordance of a computer is extremely important, no matter what your socioeconomic background is.
That's a great point.
That's a long-term play. I'm sure that definitely exists, but I had not thought of that. As my mom has got into things as she's gotten older, they ask for many years of financial statements.
Yeah, the look back.
Yeah,
is what they call it.
I just didn't think that long-term play is astonishing to me. But at any rate, just looking into this more, from a psychological aspect, Adam, just an honest question. Do you ever feel, as you have these different rate plans for different customers, that the rate plan plays into your head at all in terms of priority or support or anything like that might come into play? I'm just curious. It's a tough question to ask, but just wondering how you feel.
It's interesting. Yeah, no, it's a very fair question. And it's definitely a possibility. I think that in balance, I think that operating this way and making this available, I feel like I'm doing what I can. And so I forgive myself, right? If I can't answer that email as quickly as I might like to, and if I feel like I do have to respond when this person texts me at 7:30 p.m. because they're on a monthly plan and it's a pretty nice chunk each month, a residential customer who just pays for good service. That happens, yeah, but I think that it's okay because again, like what I'm doing is what I can figure out how to do to make services available that I don't know how else they would do it. Maybe there's some support at a public library, right? Maybe there's a city office somewhere that they can go and wait in line, but I'd like to be a resource as I can.
Yeah, there's no other. I think it's awesome. There's no other word for it. I use the word awesome maybe too loosely sometimes. But I think
something that I didn't expect when I put this together and started doing it, like dedicating some money into that fund. It also means that I can forgive a debt and I can pull from that if it's just because it happens to me very rarely, luckily. But if somebody just blows me off and it's been 6 months and I'm just like, they're not going to pay me, I'll pay myself. And that's okay too, because I'm not stealing from anybody. Also, somebody referred me to somebody who needed a lot of help because they couldn't print. So I show up. I knew it would be something stupid, right? Like the printers and their Mac, they're not on the same Wi-Fi network and they don't know the first thing about any of this stuff. So I figure it out. I get it printing. They're like, thank you so much because I had to print this out. And it turns out that they volunteer with a local group that connects volunteers to help prisoners navigate like paperwork around like medical needs that they have or this or that. And I was like, holy crap, like the way you spend your time is so much more important than the way I spend my time. I'm not going to charge you for the hour we just spent together. And it was easy for me to say that, not just because I'm going to be a good guy. I'm like, I'm going to get paid anyway. Both are true.
Right. That secondary account almost acts as a psychological buffer for you.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I'm thinking for myself, like I said, I'm not sure I would do something like this because it's a real commitment that you've made. And I applaud you on this, but I'm thinking like I wouldn't need the account. I would just, but it's sometimes when you, I don't know, sometimes you have a windfall thing where you've got $500 and then you find yourself like over the course of the month, you've spent that $500 at all these different places.
Totally.
Like, I got this
Keep
thing
the
from
change.
Amazon.
Like, I'll take make mine a double. Like, it's just like, there it goes. A little piece at a time. Exactly.
Jerry, you're already doing some portion of this. You don't charge a lot of the time anyway, so
that's true.
That works.
That's your charity. That's right. Yeah. It's an interesting thing what Sam brought up about does it affect you psychologically? Like, are you thinking of the number? You know, when the emails come in, you got 5 to deal with. Are you prioritizing? Even subconsciously, this person pays me like 1.5x the full rate, and this other person pays me half. Is there some kind of prioritization? And it's okay if there is, and like you said, you're still doing what you can. The other thing is, if you're not prioritizing the monthly subscribers and the people that are paying the full rate and all that, then you wouldn't be there for anyone necessarily. It's like you have to really like just try to serve all the customers, and sometimes prioritize the ones that are really like paying the bills first and do the best you can for everyone else. And it's not like you're making them wait just arbitrarily. You're there for them at all, which is the barrier. Yeah, that's I hope more people, I'd like to hear from listeners if anyone else is doing this, or to hear certainly from anyone who's inspired by your example, Adam, and decides to try this, because I think it's a really interesting thing and it's important for accessibility. The other way is you do have a pro bono client, but that's a lot more arbitrary. I like working with this person, or I get other benefits from working with them and they treat me to this benefit dinner or whatever, free tickets to that. But what you're doing is like trying to serve really as many people as possible who may need that support. So that's, yeah, a little bit more noble and comprehensive. And Jerry, I know you want to take it somewhere. I want to circle back to helping residential clients and then talk about maybe like this whole idea of growing your team in the last 3 minutes here. But where did you want to take us, Jerry, first before I get to those quickly?
I was just going to ask Adam if we all reveal what most of our tools are, and a lot of us have the same tools to get the job done. Have you come across anything most recently, maybe since you've been to ACES, or anything that kind of lights your fire at the moment?
Oh,
Don't mean to put you on the spot, but
yeah, I think
question. I was going to ask that too.
something I implemented real recently. It's a specific tool for a specific case, but this group might be into is TailScale. I've been hearing about it for a long time and been aware of it, and I've just been hesitant to jump in. I just thought it would be a big learning curve. And what actually got me to try it out was a buddy has a very extensive collection of movies, a Plex server, and he's like, "Yeah, just use TailScale and you can get it to my Plex server." Oh, okay. If it's that easy, let me do it. And then immediately, like same day, probably, I realized how powerful it is and installed TailScale on all of the Synologies that I touch. Nice. And so whether or not this client has a VPN, whether or not I've got some other through a Synology Quick Connect tool or whatever, just drop the app on the Synology. I've got an IP address. I can connect to it immediately with TailScale activated. And it's so simple and beautiful. And it's a clean way to do. It's a lot like Hamachi, which worked really well once you got it set up. But yeah, it was always trickier to implement.
It was tricky, but it reminds me of it's a much better known, I think, and sounds like more kind of robust version of Hamachi, LogMe and Hamachi. Nice. I'm sure, Jerry, you're going to be installing that. I can see your gears turning. Jerry loves hearing about new.
No, it's frequently talked about on I've mentioned this podcast, and I've abandoned them a long time ago.
I've heard it on there too, but I know you're not really a listener anymore.
Yeah, Mac Geek Gap with David Hamilton, who was on our show once, but they talk about these solutions mostly for residential clients. If you're listening to this and you haven't checked that out, they've been broadcasting for a long time, longer than us. And again, it's directed toward the residential customer, but a lot of good stuff. Even if you listen to it on 1.5 speed, you get through it a little quicker. That's what I tend to do with some podcasts, and you get used to that. So sometimes you pick up a tidbit like that, but they've sung the praises of TailScale for quite a while now.
And you're not concerned having that on multiple Synologies. Like they can't talk to each other. I guess there's a mode where it's like a hub and spoke kind of thing or whatever.
Yeah, I was concerned about that, but as I dug into it, finally spent a minute to read the documentation. Yeah, no.
Got it. Nice.
Pretty reasonably priced too.
I was curious too about the tools. Speaking of the concept of tools, I was going to ask you earlier if you've used any tools to leverage, again, being a one-person operation. I found, even having a very small team, Adigy has been huge for like automations and just taking like manual work off my plate and helping me manage a larger fleet than I think I'd be able to with just certainly a lot bigger fleet than I could manage with myself and even one other person manually. So I know you're a big fan there as well. Any other tools like that or specific workflows that help you leverage that?
That's a good question. I do. I like investing in tools, right? I like paying for something that works really well. I'm using Adigy. I'm using Alectrona Patch because until recently, Adigy's options for delivering software were very clicky and very involved. And I want something I'd love to be able to tell someone I'm going to keep your software up to date and feel like I'm actually very likely doing that to a very large degree rather than
the same thought process I went through. I'm like, I'm supposed to be doing this. It's not perfect now. And then Patch, okay, that solves it, which is great. Now Adigy has pre-built apps. So that's going to be a new thing to compare to Patch, because Patch is fantastic. I've sung their praises, but if it's native to Adigy, I'm definitely going to be comparing that as just another option. Maybe they fit, maybe they both mesh, but yeah, that's a great example. Way easier to do it in a tool like that than to, I don't know what you would do otherwise.
Yeah, and Patch is developing pretty aggressively, so they're adding features. I don't want to say they're cutting prices, but I think they might be cutting prices, adding features too, so that their application menu now can take over some of what I'd been deploying support app to have a nice user-facing little place to put my logo and give people things to look at and click on. And now Patch is going to do some of that as well. So I'm happy with it for now. Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw that in 3.2 is just released as of this show, actually.
I think you're right, because I just clicked on mine and I've got the new system tab and my Get Help button is ready. So
You heard it here first.
Yeah, because I actually previewed it in their great little preview tool that's built into the Patch desktop app. So I thought I was ready, but it's great to actually see it on my own machine. Here we are. It's all there, just like I thought it would be. So yeah, that is they've come a long way from just like patching apps to actually having a menu bar app that can show you some system status and quick ways to get help. So yeah, that's a great point, great example of that. Adam, one more thing I mentioned earlier, iVerify. Have you still been using that for like iPhone's kind of light non-MDM management? Speaking of reporting system status and things like that to you,
Yeah, I did. I rolled it out. I was getting the question occasionally, but consistently from mostly residential clients, right? Is there something I should be doing to secure my phone? Or do you do this for phones too? This, whatever this is. Yeah. And I didn't like saying no. And I didn't think there was anything out there that was like valuable or trustworthy or could do anything. And iVerify does a little bit. There's not a lot that needs to be done and not a lot that can be done.
Yeah.
But iVerify gives me a dashboard, and it gives both me and the user a little status indicator and alerts that say your system is up to date. Your checks like 2 or 3 other status things, and it also includes some network level setting to essentially ensure that DNS is being routed to something like Quad 9, a tool that's going to ideally catch at least some phishing attempts, right? Some of those, whatever gets into the browser, the ad networks that can suddenly direct your Safari page to a loud, scary warning that you have to call this number immediately because you've been hacked. So you set it all up, and presumably it can work to block at least some of those threats as soon as it can catch them. And I think that there's value there. Yeah. And again, it gives me a dashboard. Like I don't see a lot of purpose in trying to get residential folks, iPhones and iPads enrolled into Adigy. And it's too heavy and not great. But if I talk in a big talk about how important security is, how you've got to keep your stuff up to date. In fact, you've got to pay me so that I can make sure your stuff is up to date. Right. But then your phone, where you do 30 to 70% of your stuff, is left out of the picture. That's not awesome.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I'd like to actually talk about this on a future patron-only show, I think, about the possibility for a monitoring only or like an entry level plan. We've ruled it out. Jerry's advice from a long time ago was like, that's just not much benefit there. There's no sense in having this entry-level monitoring only plan. And I largely agree with that still, but there's a few reasons to consider it. One is just like this dashboard idea of just having visibility into what am I responsible for? I know I'm not officially really responsible for this because they don't pay me monthly, but what is their what devices might they call for help about? And so having that iVerify type system on all the individual iPhones and iPads in a residential setting, along with maybe just Watchman monitoring on the Macs, and charging something for it and making that plan the prerequisite to even working with us at all. So that's what I'm leaning toward, and want to talk a little bit more about that on a future episode. Also, I want to address some feedback from the chat from this show. Jerry, we'll get there. I want to hear
You're pushing my buttons already, Joe.
I know. That's just to tease the episode so you actually show up for the recording in about 2 minutes. But no, that topic, and also to address something that Mike Kingsley wrote in the chat about hiring people, I think was really interesting. And then, which is that sometimes the quality suffers. So he hears feedback from people who have hired, clients of his competition, basically, who have hired staff, sometimes complain about the quality of service from the staff members. So that's just an interesting thing to consider about. And also Daniel Carroll in the chat said that he's interviewing a candidate for replacing his one employee this week and wanted some tips for the interview process. Not something I have a ton of experience with, but maybe Sam and I can just give some little tips from our experience and our minimal experience with hiring. The question of should he set some technical tasks, for instance. So that'll be in our Patreon show that we're recording next. But just to clear the decks there and circle back to you, Adam, thank you so much for joining us. It's always interesting to talk to you in person, and even better to be able to broadcast this conversation live and share this amazing business model that you have. Thanks for illustrating a little bit more about that, and hopefully it inspires some of our listeners out there to give it a try. And good luck continuing to mitigate the risk of some of those very big clients. It's great to have big clients, but there's also risk that comes with it. So wish you the best of luck in navigating that as well. And I'm sure we'll be talking more about that in the future. So thanks again, Adam Rice from Ask Adam, for joining us on Command Control Power. It's been great chatting.
Thanks, guys.
Special thanks to the following community members whose strong monthly support has sustained us for all these years: Ryan Gowdy, CoreCompetent.com, Weldon Dodd, Kanji.io, Richard Wingfield, EnvisionDesign.net, Adam Rice, AskAdam.io, Mac Admins Podcast, podcast.macadmins.org, Tim Nyberg, TheMacGuys.com, Michael Thompson, Origin84.com, Matthew Waples, Waples.net, Tom Puls, BoxIT.tech, Jerome Potters, PITPro.nl, Steve Sorbo, MacSOS.biz, Andy Espo, CallAndy.com, and Nate Sinal, WeAreAScout.com. Thank you all very much, and thanks to our patrons at every level of support. If you enjoy the show, we really would love your support. And if you already support us and can increase your monthly pledge, we really do find that encouraging. CommandControlPower.com and click support. Thanks very much for listening and for supporting the show.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple expertise right now. Right now. My Mac is slow